Homelessness. Democrats in Oregon proposed a right to rest act that decriminalizes public camping as homeless crisis surges. Greg?
Here's what I think. I think homelessness is a major issue. And I think that they should not make it okay for people to camp on the streets. I think it's bad. One of the things that I think about is I have when I lived in Hong Kong, I was friends with a girl that was a personal trainer at a gym. She moved to LA to work for that company. She was in Venice Beach walking her dog, and a homeless dude hit her in the face with a hammer and stole her phone. He said, "Give me your phone." And she goes, "What?" And he took a hammer and hit her in the face. This is one of the most, I mean, she was a beautiful girl, and she gets brutally assaulted over a cell phone. And it was as a result of homelessness in Southern California. And so being somebody who's from Southern California that's watched LA and parts of, Southern California go to hell in a handbasket as a result of homelessness, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You've got and you're seeing this in Oregon. They've got needle exchanges where they don't actually exchange the needles anymore. So they've got the needle caps and the needles all over the streets.
Yep.
They're literally littering everywhere.
Yep.
And now you've got, this is what I think is absolutely hilarious. You've got hyper liberal individuals now getting their concealed weapons permit and getting firearms because they've got homeless people building villages in their backyards.
Yeah.
And you've got females who live in their house by themselves and these homeless folks are aggressive. There's drug and alcohol use, there's addiction, there's psychosis, mental instability. These are not the people that you want camping out on your street, in your parks, in your pub. They're going to be occupying in front of your house and occupying these public workspaces. I think it's a safety hazard. And I think that, there needs to be proper programs to put people in. We had Tyson De La Cruz on. He converted all of his Airbnbs into halfway houses in transitional homes for folks that were coming out of spin dries and detox with drug addiction and mental illness. That's what the government needs to be doing. They need to be fixing the problem, not saying it's okay.
Yeah. And just to give a little bit of color on this, what is the fine? $1,000. They can sue you for $1,000 if you tell them to leave, or if you make any complaints or tell them to go away,
or if they feel harassed.
Yeah, if they feel harassed.
If they feel harassed
on their newfound property.
Yeah, it's a complete joke, right? It's one of those things where, on paper, it sounds good because what the law says is any public space. So why should they be discriminated against? Right? Mm-hmm. I have the right to walk on a public sidewalk. They're saying, well, the homeless have a right to pitch a tent on the public space, right? But the problem is the public space could be directly in front of your work or your house. Now, again, on paper, it sounds good, but I want to see people go pitch tents right in front of the lawmakers. And of course, they're Democrats, right? Where they live in a little bubble. Go to their house and surround their entire house. We all should do a podcast from there, right? Go get a tent. Think about it too.
No, so I'm going to jump in here real quick.
Paper trail.
Let me just jump in here real quick.
Mobile.
So I went to college in Washington State area, and I remember because Seattle has a similar law, and they've had it for 8 or 10 years.
Yeah, wow.
And I remember walking up and down the streets of Seattle and seeing, these tents, and it's the same thing. They get fined, and dude, you're outside the Four Seasons, or the Ritz-Carlton, or some, to your point, 50-story high-rise building with prominent, wealthy people. People just defecating in the streets. It's the same kind of thing in San Francisco. You see it in LA, exactly what you're talking about. You're seeing the needles all over the place. That doesn't create families. Families don't want to be in cities. So birth rates are down in that area. So what does that mean? People don't want to be in those cities. People don't want to contribute to those cities. That means they lose tax revenue. And so for me, you're hurting the cities by making them less desirable. And remember, to your point of your girlfriend or friend that's a girl inside Venice, you remember that's California, coastal California real estate. It's multi-million-dollar real estate that's depreciating in value. And again, I think it's just going to completely backfire because it's going to just in a different light, just what's happening in Chicago with the wealth tax. Like, businesses are going to leave. You want to create an environment where businesses and a workforce wants to be, because you're going to get that tax revenue from those businesses and from those people spending money if there's sales tax, and to make your community more vibrant. I don't like the handout game. I think in Las Vegas we do an excellent job. I think Mayor Goodman has done a tremendous job pushing homelessness out and just kind of isolating them to a specific area that's not really visible or walkable by a majority of the public. Tell me if you've ever seen a person camping out on the strip in Las Vegas. You'll see somebody sleeping there. You will not see a tent, because Metro in Las Vegas will immediately tell you and pack your shit and get out, because that affects tourism, it affects revenue, it affects tax dollars, which then affects our community, and our government's smart enough to do that. I think people just want to help people, but I have no belief in this. It's never worked. It creates crime. It creates lesser tax revenue, and just slowly depreciates those jurisdictions and environments.
I love your point, and I just want to end it with this. When you're not enforcing the rules as a government, then people often enforce the rules, or they take the law into their own hands, and you're incentivizing vigilantism. Yep. So if you don't feel safe in your own home, there's someone in front of your home, you can't ask them to go away, but they're on drugs and alcohol, you feel like it's not a safe environment for your children, you might be, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything, of course, but you might have it just as a thought in your head to go out and take that matter into your own hand. Yep. If your government won't. And that's going to create a situation which already has happened up there around San Francisco, which they tried to squash it in the news. I don't know if you guys remember, they talked about a serial killer who started killing random homeless people. And why did he do that? Because he felt like his community wasn't policing the situation properly, and he felt like he was doing the Lord's work. He was doing the work of everyone in the community by taking the matter into his own hands. That is not a one-off situation. If we allow this to keep on going the way it is, we're going to get more and more of that. So just be cautious, because people will take laws into their own hands.
Yeah. And the only other thing that I want to say is, like, how embarrassing is this as an international community? Like, imagine having somebody from Dubai or Hong Kong or Singapore that's a businessman that's looking to put money into a hotel or come out or whatever, and then you rock up and there's like tent city. You come to America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, and it's like a tent city. I mean, it's embarrassing as a country.
Remember back in the day, maybe you might talk to your parents or something. They're like, "Oh, we're not going to go to any of these Latin American countries. There's homeless people. It's dangerous. There's just like homeless people in the streets." Well, now you're in Southern California, and there's homeless people in the streets,
dude.
And there's homeless people in tents, and it's no different than the worst Latin American city. So why not go to where the weather's better?
When I backpacked from Mexico City all the way to El Salvador, my mom was like, "You can't do that. It's too dangerous." And I was like, "It's fine." And now you can barely walk down your own street. Like, you can barely kids. I mean, and how many kids actually walk to school? You know what I mean?
There? None.
I grew up walking to school. Like, and once you hit to like 7th or 8th grade, you were, you always lived close to your school. And it was just one of those things where like kids would just walk to school. I love being in communities where you see, kids walking to school, and there's this vibrant community, and you see it. There's a park right by my house. Like, the kids, they get off from school, they go over to the park, they hang out, they do their thing an hour or two, they're not causing any trouble, and then they go off to wherever it is. Imagine if there's just a bunch of homeless people occupying that park with tents.